Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast Network. This is, of course, Nick McDaniel, and as always, I am joined by Bubba Myron.
Yes, and it's a special day for all of us here.
It's a special day. It's a special show. This is not actually our weekly show, which is kind of going to be, you're going to be catching that in your normal time slot as always. But today we decided, look, WrestleMania just passed. First of all, we're not going to get into that. You're going to want to check out our regular show when we break that down.
Yeah, 36 is off the books for this particular episode. Not because there wasn't anything notable in it, but because it just wasn't, it's not time to review it yet. We got to see how it stands up in the long run.
So this is something a little different. We did this, brace yourself, Myron, over 3 years ago.
4 WrestleManias ago.
Yes, we did a show very similar to this. Things and times and opinions have even changed in that time frame.
Yes, and the worst opinion was when I let you talk me into doing this one again, because this is the hardest show to write.
It is a very difficult show to do
because of the rules. I actually had this fixed last night. It was perfect, and I came downstairs this morning to look at my notes, and I'm like, son of a bitch, I got to do that all over again because I made one little mistake. And it took a lot of stuff out. So please, host, explain the rules to our contestants.
Well, we're going to explain the rules for a reason. What we've decided to do is we actually want the listeners to our show to actually participate to see how complicated and difficult this can be. What you're going to do is you're going to build your ultimate WrestleMania card. It is from matches that have actually occurred at WrestleMania. One, it's got to be a WrestleMania match. Blood, right? Makes sense, right?
Yes.
Number 2, you have to have 8 matches to build your card. 8, not 7, not 9, 8. There's a reason why we came up with that number. Your card has to consist of matches, and here are the very specific rules that get difficult to make it happen. You're allowed 2 attraction matches. That's novelty matches of any kind, or whatever you want it to be, just 2 what you call your attraction matches. The other 6 matches have to be the WWE titles, and I'm going to explain kind of what they mean. Your women's title has to be defended, and what we did is because of the incarnations they've had over the years, it's the Raw Championship, the SmackDown Championship, the Divas Championship, and the Women's Championship. In their lifetime, you have to have one of the matches at any of the 36 WrestleManias, and that's going to be your women's match. Your tag match, very similar rules. It's the SmackDown, it's a Raw, it's the World Tag Team, whatever. It's a tag team title match. Then you have to have a U.S. title match, an Intercontinental Championship match, and then you have to have a WWE Heavyweight Championship. And then because the world has, and I guess in the recent years has kind of converted over the old big gold when they brought that in and they had 2 champions, the world/universal falls under one as well. So here it's 2 attraction matches, a women's championship, a tag team championship match, a U.S. championship, Intercontinental, a WWE heavyweight championship, and then a world/universal championship. So that's your 8 matches.
And wait for the stipulation.
Oh yeah, here's the kicker. The most difficult stipulation, in my opinion, is a wrestler can't wrestle more than once. So, for example, if you were to use, let's say just from the last show, let's 36, because full disclosure, there are no 36 matches in this one right now. Just because we were doing it so close, we just thought we didn't have enough time to marinate it and let them sink in. So no 30. So basically, this is between 1 and 35. But if you used Hogan and Andre, that's your world title match, right? That's your WWE Championship match.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior because 2 things. It's a contradiction of Hogan wrestling twice, and it's a contradiction of the belt wrestling twice. The belt can only be defended once as well.
So if the belt is in, like, say, Savage and Hogan, where it was World Championship versus Intercontinental, that would burn 2 talents and 2 belts you'd not be able to use again. And that's bad.
Right. So pay very close attention. And and why are we asking about giving you the rules? Myron came up with a very cool concept. We're going to let you submit in your submissions of their Ultimate Wrestlemania card to tappedoutpod@gmail.com, at tappedoutpod at all forms of social media, Twitter, etc. Or you can just, if you're watching the video, you can just comment in there, put your card in there, make sure you follow those rules. If you don't follow the rules, you'll be disqualified and you won't win.
I think the only person that can't play is our mutual friend Greg, who had a lot to do with the rules coming up with. So you're out, sir. You're out. You're a sadist for coming up with this, and I do not want you to contribute because you'll probably beat me, actually. But yeah, thanks, man. That was a great idea. The hardest show I've ever had to write, and I've done it twice now. So, you know how much Wikipedia and WWE Network I've been through in the last 2 days? It's a lot.
Yeah, so it's complicated. It's more difficult than you think, and we'll get into all that in a minute. Why, and you'll see. So sometimes when we pick a match, you may say like, well, that wasn't even this person's best match. Get to the end because his opponent in the match you're thinking probably got used in something else.
Yep.
So keep that all in mind. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. And we're going to start with our opening match. They always kind of say that if you're not in the main event, sometimes you want to be in the opening match. Now, ironically, we put our list together separately. Then we got together and was, kind of putting the show together. And we found out that we had the exact same opening match.
Well, this opening match was incredibly hard to move around because it had the U.S. title and it also had two major superstars.
Yes. And that we will jump straight into. It is Big Show versus John Cena at WrestleMania 20 for the U.S. Championship.
The first appearance of John Cena. Does Big Show still have that tiger tattoo, or has that been done over?
I think he still has that one. This was Cena's big, like his move to the forefront. This is him capturing the U.S. Championship. And between 20 and 21, the argument could be made that's the year John Cena became the face of the company because that was his year-long run to capturing that title at 21 and becoming the face of it.
Isn't this where he made the spinner belt after this?
Yes.
Okay. Big Show was a massive heel, a serious player, not like he was in later years. He was an ass whipper, and here you come this brand new upstart to face him. I don't think you could have got a better starting match. And it's the debut of John F. Cena, who at 36 he was wrestling 16 years ago. So was it his 17th WrestleMania or something? If we count the ones he sat in the bleachers for.
Well, it's all the biggest kick of this is the night where not only did finally the fans see, the Doctor of Thugonomics capture that U.S. Championship from Big Show, but it is also a moment that goes down in history of him scooping up Big Show and hitting, they call it the attitude adjustment now, but the old FU, that he used to give, and just the display of strength in itself kind of wowed that crowd over a little bit. And this was, by the way, this is when fans were ready for Cena, they wanted him.
Well, it was on the tail end of the Attitude Era. It was when Stone Cold and The Rock were moving away, and they were having to create new stars, and this is where they did it. This established him. He's been a big asset to the company the whole time.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, and the funny thing is, in my opinion, the walk away from the Attitude Era started at my next match.
Fire up.
My next matchup was none other than TLC 2 at WrestleMania X7, 17, call it what you will. To me, I almost feel like this match, by the way, is it arguably one of the greatest tag team championship matches of all time?
Definitely.
Yes. It was a car crash and a half. The violence was off the charts. And I think this match began the end of the Attitude Era.
This is a match that had a pay-per-view named after it. This was a match where stuff was done you'd never seen before. A spear off a ladder. This whole thing was insane. This whole match, top to bottom, insane, constant action. it almost set too high of a dangerous standard after this.
And I think that's what I mean. I think that's what began the end of the Attitude Era. I think that coming back, there's stories of everybody in the back saying, okay, like, how do you top that without putting people's lives in danger?
Yeah.
And it began the end of that, was kind of starting the beginning, the departure from the Attitude Era. But these three teams will be tied together in history. The image of, that spear off of the ladder is something that is played in every WrestleMania montage you ever see. The crazy thing of this whole match was building up to these three. You had basically two babyface teams. You had Hardy, and the Hardys and the Dudleys were babyfaces, and Edge and Christian were the heels. Edge and Christian win, and I don't know if they needed to or whatever that's supposed to mean, but they did. And it's just, as a package deal, these three, I don't know of anybody, like, if you do like triple threat tag matches, that had the chemistry that these three teams had.
They did magical things.
They did.
Magical things.
Speaking of magic, man, well, let's go to your next one. Your second match on the card.
This is special to me. This is WrestleMania number 1. This was a match I wanted to see as a child. Mike Rotunda is the first autograph I had ever got. I wish I still had that program. Back when he was with U.S. Express. They're managed here by Captain Lou Albano. The other team, the heels, are managed by Classy Freddie Blassie. You've got the Iron Sheik, and you got Nikolai Volkov, the foreign superpowers. Okay? The good guys are defending their belts. They're a hot young tag team. They're terrific. As they play all that American stuff. It's us versus them. It's old versus new. It's just time. And then the Sheik whacks Wyndham with Freddie Blassie's cane when the referee's back is turned. Volkov gets the pin. Cheating. I love that kind of good manager cheating. I wish you still got that. The heel tag team managers were the best. It was a tie to the old WWE that they brought into the new era. This is when WrestleMania started. This is when they were trying to establish this as a national event. You had Gorilla Monsoon on commentary. You had Jesse. You can see Jesse's bandana there in the bottom right corner. It was a special time. And it was a very special time for me as a wrestling fan. I had to wait till this came out on VHS to go to the store and rent it. That's how old this was. This match was the tag team match on the first card. I loved it.
Let me ask you a question. This goes to the story of pro wrestling in that era. So we're talking 35 years ago. But every stereotype, every wrestling trope is in here, right?
Oh,
You've got the American, young tag team. They're your heroes.
Mm-hmm.
There's an Iranian and a Russian who are the villains with the cheating manager, Freddie Blassie. And it's good versus evil, black and white as you could possibly cut it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no shades of gray here. And that's why everybody loved the U.S. Express. And by the way, standing in that ring is a gene pool that's, put out some very good talents who still wrestle today. So,
yep. Us versus them, good versus evil. This was instant. You didn't even have to do anything to make heat in this match. This match was heat. So, man,
it's something. It's a lot for a gimmick that you can walk to the ring and the fans just instantly know, oh, he's the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know we're not supposed to do that anymore, right? We're not supposed to do stereotypes and that kind of stuff, but it
won't happen again. But when it did happen, nothing brought it up like this did.
Oh, I agree, man. It's a great, solid choice. I'm going to come more new school on my next match. This is the funny thing is this, guess what? We found out that our third match actually mirrored. Now, we didn't have it in exactly the same positions on the card, but we ended up putting it in the same so we wouldn't have to go over it twice with with each other. My logic was coming off of the TLC match in the second match on the card. I'm not saying you needed a match to come down, because let's full disclosure here. There's really not a match on your card that you're coming down for.
You can't book this traditional wrestling, ups and downs, and go to the intermission. This is a lot.
It's a hard straight ride all night long.
Yeah.
So what we did is we thought, okay, after these two, we got to go. We're not, because I wouldn't even say we slowed it down, because we go to the women at WrestleMania 35, Ronda Rousey defending its, Becky, Charlotte. It was winner take all. Becky Two Belts was basically born here.
Yep.
But Ronda had been on that phenomenal streak for a whole year, where she made her debut the WrestleMania before and just tore through the whole entire women's roster. And then these three go out there and just crushed it, by the way, in the first women's main event at a WrestleMania.
Yeah. This was the ascension of the women to be able to main event Mania. This was a hard-hitting, passionate, and very technically sound match. There wasn't anything you would have expected to get in this match that it didn't deliver on. Charlotte with a SmackDown title, Ronda with a Raw title, and Becky walks out with both of them, which basically set up the entire women's campaign for the next year. And Becky still has that Raw belt. It was great. It was a very, very good match. I can't say enough about it. I watched it again last night. It's only been a year, so I can't say it still holds up, but it still got me the way it did the first time I saw it. And that's a great compliment.
Oh, it's a great match. I mean, the match was over 21 minutes long, which is, insane. But the only negative thing about this is this match took place so late because they had run 7+ hours or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It was already almost midnight when this match finally goes on, and which will be kudos to one of the pluses you'll hear about this year's Mania. But that was my only knock is they did get the main event on, but they went so late that I wonder how many people had to watch this the next night.
I watched it the next day. I'm not going to lie. I just fell asleep probably about 10:30, and which is, I normally stay up much later than that, but I was tired from a day of work, and got up the next morning, didn't look at social media, made myself a cup of coffee, sat down and watched this match, and was just amazed with it. So.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know. I know when we did this last time, I had a different match as my women's match. But this one stands up it's very good, stands the test of time. And so that's kind of what I'm going with.
Amen.
All right. Well, let's go to your fourth match since we already had we've already had going on here. So let's jump into your next one, which is from WrestleMania 2000.
That's what WrestleMania 16 in Greek numerals, if I'm not mistaken. You got two belts on this one. You got the Intercontinental and the European title, both held by Kurt Angle in a match versus this is a perfect execution of the triple threat, in my opinion, versus Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit. First fall is the Intercontinental belt. Second fall is the European belt. These three guys were in their prime, and they put on a barn burner of a match. It was just amazing to watch. Chris Jericho, you'll never hear enough good things from me about him. I love that guy. He's still the best. Angle was a great technical wrestler, and Benoit was the Wolverine. Man, I don't want to go into the whole Benoit and go into the dark side of the ring and all that, but if we just look at his inside the ring work, the man was amazing, and you got it in this match.
Yep. I did follow the rules, but it's midway through stream here. I didn't have the image in here. But let's go. We'll come back to this. We'll go. My next match on the card is WrestleMania 30. It's a triple threat. It is Batista, Daniel Bryan, and Randy Orton. They are, first of all, Daniel Bryan had to qualify for this match by beating Triple H early in the night.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, this was the culmination of the Yes Movement.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this moment will go down in history. Same thing. Biggest thing is I try to tell people, it's not always about matches, it's about moments.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't believe me, go back and watch the montage of WrestleMania is WrestleMania moments.
Yep.
So,
and a lot of those are on this list we've done.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
What we remembered.
So that's mine. I mean, this match here, I know it wasn't Batista's favorite run. This was the whole Batista, the Batista, that thing. It wasn't, his crowning moment, I'm sure, which is why he obviously came back again and went out kind of on his terms, wrestling Triple H.
Yeah.
But at this point, I think the WWE could not deny Daniel Bryan anymore.
Now the fans were so far behind him. It was a movement to seize his gimmick. It was a movement. You know, I was happy to see him succeed so well. He was the underdog character, the guy who came up through the indies, and this was, I think, the culmination of the best thing he's done in his career, in my opinion.
Oh, easily. That was his best run. Nobody can deny it. I think that was as easily as the best run he had total across the board.
Hmm.
Next up, we're going to move to your next match. It was at WrestleMania 20,
Mm-hmm.
which was
This is a lot. You know, I couldn't find a Rock match, or a Foley match, or a Flair match, or an Orton match, and maybe even Batista match that didn't have a title that I didn't have something else in. So this right here, this is my filler match with 5 of the greatest stars of all time in it. 5 guys who, if they aren't, will be in the Hall of Fame. It's inevitable, or inevitable, sorry. The Rock and Sock Connection was my favorite tag team. Now they're not on their full goofiness right now, but you got a handicap match, 3-on-2, and passion, fun. This was the last match The Rock had on a WrestleMania till 27. So he took a 7-year break off. So this is the last time you see him. Foley took the fall. The team lost, and you didn't see Rock again for 7 years. You got some of the biggest stars out there possible. This was a good one. Like I said, I don't want to just smash this in here as some kind of filler match, but I got 5 massive names off the board right here, and I got to get them in a non-title match.
yeah, it's one of your attraction matches, and it's what you're getting when you have Rock back and Foley's in, and obviously versus Evolution. It's just kind of a handicap match, but you get to get the big name of The Rock back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, which brings me to my first attraction match. I just was sitting here going like, I got to get this match in, and this is the match that did the most damage to my card as a whole, because it took 2 players completely out of the game. But there's no way I'm making an Ultimate WrestleMania card. No way it's happening without Shawn versus Taker at 25.
Mm-hmm.
Shawn has said on multiple occasions, there's no such thing as a perfect match. But if he's ever wrestled one, this is it.
Oh yeah, it was a beautiful match.
I mean, he descends from the heavens, the whole white, it was just good versus evil, that whole thing. And then technically, I know a lot of people, they try to argue, well, Shawn his retirement match the next year, that's better. I'm like, no, there's something special. And I don't know what it is, but every time I watch this match, I'm always like you said, this is probably, I would argue for, now, if you're talking wrestling matches, and this is where we're going to differentiate in a little bit later, it's probably one of the best wrestling matches at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm. 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 Both guys very sound wrestlers, very, very sound wrestlers, and it turned into an absolute slobber knocker. Beautiful match. It's the greatest match you could have to be the WrestleMania before you retire, but you can't beat the streak. It wasn't time.
Some would debate it was never time.
No, yeah, I agree. I do agree. But this was awesome. This will go down in history, like you said, as one of the most complete matches ever.
Yeah, the emotion, the skill, the technique, the story, everything that you talk about. And lots of wrestlers, like, what are good matches to watch? Hey, this one's not a bad one to watch if you're trying to put on a match.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, they would continue on to 26, of course, but Taker's story doesn't end there. We head into your next match, which was
27, WrestleMania 27, the man with 3 H's versus Undertaker in a no holds barred match. This was brutal. Chair shot, chair shot, chair shot. Triple H stole the pile driver finisher. I watched this and it was just so brutal. Finishers. Oh man, and they were just beating, and Triple H was hitting. It was like, die! Why don't you die? Just smashed him with a chair. And Triple H comes at him with the sledgehammer, and Taker catches him in his submission hold, the Hell's Gate. And as he's working him over in the submission hold, it's coming down. Triple H manages to grab the sledgehammer off the ground and he lifts it. He lifts it, trying to make it. It's just like Hogan's arm when Hogan would do that bit. He's trying to hold the sledgehammer up to hit him, and he drops it, and it's over. And the place was crazy. And you got the purple fireworks, and you got all the good stuff. This was so much fun to watch. Undertaker goes into old school, and Triple H yanks him off the ropes. You got Scott Armstrong there as the referee. I don't think they're going to have matches that crazy between two of the older guys again. I don't think Taker can wrestle this match again. It was glorious excess of violence and gimmicks. I loved it. It's one of those things that makes me just jump up and be, man, wow, that was so good. I remember how good it used to be. And that's my thing, man. I loved it.
Yeah, it's the 2-year story of these guys is off the charts. Sorry, I'm over here choking here because I was actually at this match, which was and I remember it. They literally beat the absolute hell out of each other in that match.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just there's nothing like a Taker walk to the ring and entrance at Mania. There's nothing like it.
Well, you've got both of the big entrance guys.
Oh yeah.
You got the Triple H big entrance. You got the Taker big entrance. Man, it was so good to watch that.
So let's jump on to my next one. It is my Intercontinental match.
Oh, man.
It's other people's argument as the greatest WrestleMania match ever. It's most people say it's the best Intercontinental match ever. And that's Steamboat and Savage now. That's all debatable. That's all debatable stuff. But losing, because there was another title match, an IC title match that I waffled back and forth with, which was Shawn and Razor. But of course, guess what? If you put Shawn in the match, you can't use him and Taker, which has got to go on.
And this was a classic match. This is a match people still talk about. This is a match people reference. It's either Savage and Steamboat or Flair and Steamboat. So you got that common denominator of Steamboat and some of the best matches of all time. You've got Randy Savage, one of the all-time greats. Miss Elizabeth. Both those people, may they rest in peace, were such a great combination there. It was a clinic. It's a beautiful clinic to watch.
Oh yeah, wholeheartedly. I agree with you. And now we wedged two of mine back to back, by the way, just because we did yours two back to back earlier when we did the women's and so forth. So next up on my card, pretty simple, man, is Brock and Kurt Angle.
Lesnar, two of the greatest amateur wrestlers of all time, in a match. Was this the match for the Spladle?
It is a Spladle. You remember that?
Spladle. Poor old Brock there in his tidy whities. He looks like he's wearing his underpants.
We noticed that in this picture. He looks like he's wearing Hanes.
Yes. Well, maybe his uniform didn't come in.
Maybe.
The shooting star press that nearly changed the world.
How badass does he have to be to do that shooting star press? Basically land on his face, knock himself out, still have the wherewithal to hit that F5 for the win.
Yeah. Lesnar's great.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Kurt picked him up, because Kurt did pick him up, by the way.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you he just picked him up and said F5.
Yeah.
And get it.
Go home.
It was lots of good wrestling at the beginning of this match. And I think that gets forgotten when people talk about this match. Everybody obviously thinks of the shooting star press is like the first thing everybody thinks of. But there was really good wrestling. It was a great match up until that spot going, poorly. And in hindsight, probably Brock didn't need that move.
No, he didn't need that move. That was glorious excess. That was WrestleMania excess. It's hitting it all. It's like, I can hit this move back in Ohio Valley. I know I can do it. And then this happens. And you don't remember the great parts about this match because of that. Well, no, that was a great botch, though. I'll give you that much. It's
another, not in a good way, of stuff that always comes down in, videos and stuff that you'll see about WrestleMania. It's one of the bad moments of WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that's mine. That was my WWE title match. Which leads us to yours, Brock having another match, right?
My Universal title match, Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns at 34. Now, neither one of these guys are internet darlings. And the fans booed and chanted CM Punk and put around beach balls. But this was a great match. Roman speared him 4 times. I think he hit a Superman punch twice. And it took F5 number 6 to finish Roman off. 2 guys went out there and busted their asses. Brock took off the gloves, busted him open. Roman bled. Brock is such a brutal wrestler. He's so legitimate. He makes this thing look so real that you think he's going to beat your ass at any time. This was Roman. Even though Roman lost, it was a good showing for Roman. Roman was sick not long after this, if I'm not mistaken. Love this thing. Roman is such a great wrestler that people hate. And I think Brock is another great wrestler that people hate. But when you look down straight at it, they're 2 of the best in the business, probably some of the best of all time.
Yeah, I think Brock Lesnar absolutely gets crapped on more than for no reason. I mean,
they wouldn't do it to his face.
Well, no, they wouldn't. And I think Roman's the same. I mean, I'm like, look, Roman was raised in this business. I know he played football and whatnot, but it's in his blood. He's as good as anybody. And I know he's shoved down our throat. We've had this conversation a million times. There's always been somebody being shoved down your throat. You just didn't know any better.
It's called booking.
Well, no, it's called. I mean, the internet convinced everybody that this is who they want, and so this guy's being shoved down their throat. And I'm like, no, you've always had Dusty Rhodes shoved down your throat. By the way, who was my favorite wrestler of all time. Yep. But still, that's not the point. Brock Lesnar is a legit badass. I mean, this match, for everybody, I remember watching this and like, I didn't get the hate. I didn't understand that, it was what it was. So now we're coming up on our main events, man. This, to me, was easy. And if anybody knows and has followed us over the years, you should know easily what my main event would be. And truth be told, I was very unsurprised. I kind of knew who yours would be. Mm-hmm. And it shouldn't shock anybody. So let's jump into our main events. We'll do mine first, and that's going to be none other than Rock Hogan at 18.
Such a beautiful match.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful match.
So I posted on Facebook not too long ago about this match. I was watching it again before WrestleMania, and I was showing my wife and the youngest child this match. They had never seen it. And, so I put up a thing on Facebook about it, and somebody made a comment of, oh, well, watch it with the sound off. It's terrible. And I'm like, why would you do that? That's like, wrestling is about the fans and the cheering and the reaction you're getting. So turning the sound now, I got it from this year's WrestleMania. We'll discuss that obviously on the other show, but
like set yourself on fire and then drink ice water. And what the fuck was the point was turn the sound off. The sound in this match was what made the match so great. These were 2 gladiators playing to an audience and getting all of the feeling in. Man.
I jokingly said it's somebody who thinks that wrestling is all about the moves in the ring. That's had to have who commented on it.
That's a Ring of Honor type thing. And I don't care for that. I like this.
Yeah.
I like the shiny, and I like the moves that draw the people in. I like the people's elbow. God, this was so good.
What I said in that post, and I stand behind it to this day, is this match is the epitome of wrestling, because wrestling is about, invoking an emotion, a reaction. There wasn't anybody in that building that wasn't reacting, and that was that was Toronto. That was a dome. It's a stadium, for crying out loud, and the place was going absolutely banana, as Pat Patterson would say.
Gaga.
And to think that these, a lot of people say like these 2 weren't the best wrestlers in the world at one point. You've lost your mind. This match, by the way, the story if you've ever heard the story told, they changed this match in the middle of in the match, when they got to the ring. Rock is the babyface, Hogan's the heel. Toronto loved Hogan. They wanted their hero. They cheered him no matter what. So they just kind of on the fly just changed, and the way they gave you the happy ending, obviously, with obviously Rock gets the win. That wasn't the happy ending, by the way. The happy ending would be when Hall and Nash come in and jump Hogan, and if Rock makes the save, and then Hogan must pose at the end, and you have your happy go home moment with Rock and Hogan posing, and kind of that kind of stuff. But if I don't understand anyone's argument that they tell you that this is not one of the epitome of the greatest WrestleMania matches ever.
No, has to be. This would be my top one if I knew you weren't going to pick it for your top one.
Well, yours ain't bad either.
Yeah.
I will go ahead and say, and yours, of course, was for a WWE Championship as well, WWF at the time, and of course, it is none other than
number 3. When he's not out there giving advice about vaccines, racial slurs, or showing people his thermos, Hulk Hogan was WrestleMania. Hulkamania, WrestleMania, all the manias right here in the greatest wrestling match of all time. People wanted to see this. This was on box covers. There are people selling prints of that very photo online, and I've thought about buying them to have framed for this office. Look at that. Look at that monster Andre. Hogan, just like a steel, spring, ready to get after him. God, this was the greatest match of all time, in my opinion. It was all the drama. It was all of the Hulkamania. It was all of the every move they hit. They got the leg drop in. They got that bear hug in that Andre put on him, and Hogan's arm went down once. Lifted up again. Went down twice. Lifted up again. And on that third one, it wouldn't go down and start shaking. And he hulks up and gets out of that hold. And then he body slams Andre. How insane is that? That giant of a man. Hulk Hogan shows off by body slamming him on the greatest stage of all time, with Bobby Heenan at ringside. This is the match of my childhood. This is the match that cemented me on the WWE and made me a lifetime WWE fan right here. Hogan Andre.
The stories behind this match go so deep. Obviously, Andre was in pain. He wasn't near the wrestler that he was. But to go out there and do the right thing, and just entertain. I mean, give the fans exactly what they wanted. 18 is my favorite match, obviously, with him and Rock. But I always tell people, in my opinion, I know people try to say 1 and 2. There's, WrestleMania 1, Piper, Orton, those guys made it. I just wholeheartedly disagree. This is what made WrestleMania what it is today.
Yeah.
This was the launching pad of making WrestleMania. Now, I know they had some rough patches years after this, but this is, like I said, this was the epitome to show that wrestling was a player. Whether that legitimate 90,000, plus thousand number is legitimate or not, doesn't matter. That's the number the world had, and that's the one and it proved that WWF/pro wrestling was a player on the national scale.
And I would wager this is probably the most viewed wrestling match of all time. This is probably, even if it's not 90,000 there, this match has probably been viewed more times than any other match, in my opinion. 2 icons, passing of the torch, the Hulkamania. This was big time, folks. This was when it was big time. Man, I love this.
Yeah, like I said, it's and what I said earlier, it's WrestleMania is all about moments. That's what pro wrestling's about. And that slam of Andre, that you will see that video played, that video clip played over and over and over throughout history, because that again was the defining moment to me of propelling wrestling, not only maybe not even national, maybe global scale.
Then, now, forever. That's where this comes from.
I agree with you, man. Not too shabby of a card, if I say so myself, from both of us.
Ooh, yeah, y'all gonna have a hard time beating that.
But hey, there's a lot to be put into this. I mean, how long the matches are total. Like I tried to make it a point. Even my total card was 2 hours and 32 minutes and 40 seconds of runtime as far as bell to bell action. I'm like, okay, well that's cool. 27 minutes and some change of some promos and entrances and stuff like that. I'm at 3 hours. I mean, that's a good card.
That's perfect card in my opinion.
It's what wrestling should be, is about a 3 hour pay-per-view, not the marathons. So like we said, man, I mean, it's really, it's not easy as doing this as you think. So we want everybody to get involved, and we just thought it was it's a fun project to try out. And submit your, all of your submissions again to tappedoutpod@gmail.com, at tappedoutpod on, of course, Twitter, social media, of course, Facebook. You can, send us a message with your card in there. But heck, even if you're watching the video, comment your card in the comments, but like I said, you got to make sure you follow the rules. 8 matches, 2 attraction matches, a women's title match of any variation. It could be a Raw, SmackDown, or a Divas, or the old women's championship. You can only have one. Tag, same thing, SmackDown, Raw, tag team belts in the past. A U.S. and Intercontinental, a world title match, which is big gold or / the Universal, and of course a WWE, WWF championship match as well, with no wrestler wrestling twice. That's the hard part. If a wrestler wrestles once, and a belt can only be defended once.
It makes it what a real card would be like.
Yeah.
You don't see guys working 2 and 3 times anymore.
Well, we don't want that on WrestleMania anyway, other than Daniel Bryan, but that was a different story at that time. It had to be earned and worked its way up. So, but like I said, guys, hey, we appreciate that. Send those submissions in, and what are they going to win, Myron?
A T-shirt. I will buy you a T-shirt from Pro Wrestling Tees of choice out of our studio, our ProWrestlingTees.com/tappedoutpod T-shirts. I'll get you one. You give me your size and your address, and I will send it to your house.
Yep. What we'll do is we'll get together. We will pick a winner. So what we're going to do is we're going to air, obviously, our Patreon members, by the way, are going to get this early, as they always do. Patreon.com/tappedoutpod. We're going to drop this early for them, so they'll have already seen this. And then we're going to drop it a few days later. We're going to drop it on our Facebook video page as well. And what do we say we give them? A week?
You got a week.
Maybe the following weekend we'll make the picks. We'll go through them and pick out one, and then we'll reach out to the winner. However you got a hold of us is how we're going to get back in touch with you. So make sure it's, you can send us something that you're kind of regularly checking, because we'll send back a memo, like a letter, the email, direct message, whatever, and let you know that you won, and you'll be able to pick between either the original tapped out tee, the I'd tap that tee, or the Wrestling is Like Women t-shirt, ProWrestlingTees.com/tapped out wrestling podcast to pick it out. We'll send you the link. We'll work all that stuff.
It's a challenge for you folks. Make it work.
Submit your cards, man. It's as tough as it seems. Submit your cards and let us know what you think. And you can be, as long as you're constructive and you're not rude about it, what'd you think of our cards? I mean, we always want to know, what's your feedback on ours? What would you, like I said, but here's the funny thing. Don't criticize until you send us your card.
I'm going to tell you flat out, this is about a 4-hour job. If you can get this done in less than 4 hours, you're doing better than me.
It's a little bit of research to really do it right. I agree with you. So, that's what I say, but hopefully you enjoyed something a little different. We just wanted to change the pace with everything going on, give you something a little more fun to try, to give it a listen to. But man, that's my Ultimate WrestleMania card. That's Myron's Ultimate WrestleMania card. You got anything else before we get out of here, man?
No, sir. That's about all I've got for the day.
Well, we're going to wrap up WrestleMania season, and what's the old saying, man? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
It's time to tap out.